Welcome to this session on financial aid. My name is Lisa Sharon. I'm the Financial Aid Director here at Wilson Community College. I'd like to take just a few minutes of your time to go over the different types of financial aid and how you can apply for each. First, students are required to complete the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. This is to consider you for federal grants, state grants, work study, and loans. Additional applications are required for work study and loans. Completing the application. Please note you can complete the application electronically at www.fasfa.gov, or you can complete a paper application, which is available in the financial aid office. If you complete your application online, it will generally take 3 to 5 business days to receive the results. Please note you will need to list Wilson Community College on your application for us to receive the results. Students must apply for a PIN in order to sign the document electronically, and a new application must be completed every school year. A good rule of thumb is to complete your application when you do your taxes. The paper application generally takes 4 to 6 weeks to process. This application must be signed by the student and parent if a dependent. A new application for the paper applications must be filed every year when you do your taxes. And if you don't do tax returns, you still have to do a paper application every year or an electronic application. Now, dependents need both their federal tax return and their parents' tax return if they applied. Independents need their federal tax return and spouses if they're married and if they filed a tax return. Untaxed income such as child support received and veterans' non-educational benefits must be reported on the application. In addition, you can contact the financial aid office if you or your family has experienced any unusual circumstances that may affect your application. Dependents. Students who answer no to all the questions in Step 3, which are questions 45 through 57, will need to provide parental information. Independents are students who answer at least yes to one question in Step 3, and they do not need to provide parental information. The different types of financial aid are federal grants, state grants, work study, subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, emergency loan, half tuition loan, bookstore loan, scholarships, and child care assistance. Grants are funded by the federal and state government agencies created specifically to help offset the cost of education. Federal and state grants generally do not have to be repaid. However, if you do not complete your coursework, you may be liable for all or part of your award. You may be wondering, how do I know if I qualify? Well, first complete your FAFSA, and the results that come back from that will let us know if you qualify. But there are additional requirements. Even if your FAFSA say you qualify, you must be in an eligible program of study. You cannot be exceeding the 600% lifetime eligibility use, and you must maintain satisfactory academic progress. And please note, there are application flags that may require extra documentation to resolve eligibility. The first is citizenship flag. A student must be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. Eligible non-citizens must provide their 8 or 9-digit alien registration number on their FAFSA. Overpayments. Now, an overpayment may occur when you do not complete the term for which you received a grant. And defaults occur when you do not pay your federal loans on time. Both of these have to be resolved before receiving future aid. Drug convictions. For the possession or sale of illegal drugs for an offense that occurred while receiving federal aid may affect eligibility. Verification. If flagged for verification, the financial aid office will need the following: either an official tax transcript, or you may utilize the IRS data retrieval on the FAFSA, and a verification worksheet completed by you, and if you're a dependent, your parent. And once you've turned all that information in, please allow for us to check your file and get the official results back from the processing center. It does take a few days to get this information back to determine eligibility. How do we notify students if you're eligible? Well, we generally send an email to let you know that you've been approved, and we request that you log on to WebAdvisor, print your award letter, and turn it back into the financial aid office. If you're lacking anything before we can determine eligibility, we will mail your award letter. So just keep a check on the mail, and also keep check on your email account. We ask students to check on a regular basis their email account because we often use email to communicate changes in eligibility. What are the eligible majors? Well, for federal and state aid, students may apply cost from a degree program and most of our diploma programs. BLET is the only certificate program approved for federal and state aid, and none of our continuing education classes qualify for assistance. Lifetime eligibility used. Effective fall 2012, students cannot receive more than the equivalent of 6 full-time annual Pell Awards. The Department of Education will track receipt from the inception of Pell, and this also affects state grant eligibility. The example given here is John receives 100% in 2001-02 school year and received 100% in 2002-03. In 2003-04, he receives another 100% in 04-05, likewise 05-06 and 06-07. When you add that up, John has already received 600% of his Pell Annual Award eligibility. So therefore, if he applies now, he would not qualify for any Pell or state grants. Satisfactory academic progress is measured in 3 areas: passing rate, which is 67%, GPA, which is 2.0, and the maximum time frame, which is 150%. Students are required to meet all 3 SAP components. Upon failing any one of these SAP components, they will be placed on warning, and if they fail it again consecutively in a row, they'll be placed on suspension. Let's take a look at each one of these in more detail. With the exception of 150%, that one does not have a warning. It just automatically, students are put on suspension, but we'll look at that in more detail in just a second. 67%, the PACE regulation. Now, all financial aid recipients must pass 67% of their cumulative hours attempted. The first failure, the financial aid warning flag will be placed on their account and they will continue to be eligible for aid. The second consecutive failure, the student would be placed on financial aid suspension and lose eligibility for aid. Future aid will depend on meeting the 67% requirement. Let's look at an example of this. Shaggy starts college in fall 2009. In fall 2009, he registers for 12 credits and passes 0. His passing rate would be 0%, and we get that by taking 0 divided by 12, which is the number he passed, divided by the number he attempted. At the end of the term, he will be placed on financial aid warning. Now, in fall of 2010, Shaggy returns, and he registers for 12 credits, and he passes all 12 this time. However, his passing rate is only going to be 50% because we're going to look at the cumulative hours attempted and cumulative hours completed. So the cumulative hours completed will be 12, but the cumulative hours attempted were 24, which yields the 50%. Now, at the end of the term, Shaggy's going to be placed on financial aid suspension, and he will not be eligible for federal or state aid until he obtains that cumulative 67% passing rate. Let's look at another example. Scooby-Doo starts college in fall 2009, and he registers for 12 credits. He passes 6, and he gets a passing rate of 50%. which we get by taking the number of hours he passes divided by the number he attempts. Now, at the end of the term, Scooby-Doo is put on financial aid warning. When he returns in fall 2010, he registers for 7 credits and passes 7. His passing rate at this point would be 68%, which would be the 13 hours from fall 09 and fall 10 divided by the number he attempted from fall 09 and fall 10, which is 19. So we would take him off of financial aid warning at the end of fall 2010. So Scooby-Doo never loses federal or state aid eligibility. Another component of the SAP is GPA. Students are required to maintain a cumulative GPA, which includes the remedial classes. Upon failing it the first time, students would be placed on warning and remain eligible for aid. Upon failing it the second consecutive time, students would be placed on suspension and lose eligibility. Please note that the Financial Aid Office calculates GPA, which includes the remedial hours. Our registration office calculates the GPA for school purposes, but not for financial aid purposes, and their calculation does not include remedials. So when you get your grade report, please note that the cumulative hour they have is not what we will have on our files, or it's not likely to be the same unless you just don't have any remedial classes in that calculation. The other component of SAP is 150%. Students cannot receive federal or state aid if they reach 150% of the required number of hours for their program of study. All hours count, even if the major changes, with the exception of remedial classes. What are the federal grants? The first is the Pell Grant, and secondly is the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. Funds are awarded based on the FAFSA results, and the Pell ranges anywhere from $555 per year up to $5,550 a year. SEOG varies depending on availability and funds, and our award year goes from fall to summer. However, please note, if you're full-time fall and full-time spring, you're not going to have any grant money for summer because you would have already used it up for fall and spring. And so you might want to put some of that money aside to help you cover summer. Just a thought. Now, state grants. There are the North Carolina Community College Grant and the ELS grant. The requirements for those grants are that you must be a North Carolina resident, you must be enrolled at least half-time to get a prorated amount, and you must meet the SAP requirements. Work Study. Work Study is a need-based program, and students typically work 10 hours a week. They cannot exceed 26 hours a week, and they get paid at a rate of $7.25. These students must also meet the SAP requirements and authorize a background check before beginning work at Wilson Community College. If you're interested in the Work Study program, be sure to complete the FAFSA and then complete a Work Study application, which is available in the Financial Aid Office. Direct loans. The first type is a subsidized loan. The subsidized loan is a need-based loan. Funds are to be paid back. However, the government pays interest while the student is enrolled at least half-time. Payments can be deferred until 6 months after the student ceases half-time enrollment, and funds are to be used for educational purposes only. You can visit our website at wilsoncc.edu for more information about how to apply. The unsubsidized loan is slightly different in that this is not a need-based program. The funds are to be paid back, however, but the government does not pay interest on the loan while the student is enrolled. If you're interested in applying for this loan as well, you may visit the wilsoncc.edu website. Emergency loan. In some cases, students may qualify for an emergency loan for up to $250 for 30 days. Students must see the financial aid director for processing this loan, and we must have documentation to process this loan. There is a $5 processing fee that is due within the 30 days, and the loans are based on the availability of funds. It's not based on FAFSA at all. There's also a half tuition loan that is available generally through the school as long as funds are available. Students are allowed to borrow half the tuition if they can pay the other half plus the fees at the time of registration. This loan is generally due back within 60 days. There is a $5 processing fee. And here again, this is dependent upon the availability of funds. There's also our bookstore loan. We can loan up to $250 for the cost of books, and this is a 30-day loan. You pay it back with a $5 processing fee, and the loans are based on the availability of funds, and it's not based at all on the FAFSA results. Scholarships. Wilson Community College offers a variety of scholarships every year, and the bulk of our scholarships are awarded in fall semester for the year. We post our scholarship application on our website, usually late July and during registration for fall semester. Also, additional scholarship information can be found at the cfnc.org website. And throughout the year, we post scholarship information on our website as we get that information. Child care assistance. Students must complete a different application for the Child Care Assistance Program. You must also complete the FAFSA, and you can find the child care application online at the wilsoncc.edu website during fall registration, or you can stop by the financial aid office and pick up an application. This application may also be available at later times. If you have questions about the program, you can contact Lee Rhodes at 246-1344. What are the financial aid requirements? As we mentioned before, there are a number of components of SAP that have to be met in order to receive financial aid. And that's the 2.0, the cumulative 67%, and can't exceed 150% of the hours required for your major. In addition to that, there is the 30-hour limit that can be applied towards financial aid. So we tell students, as they realize they need remedial classes, be aware that no more than 30 hours can be accumulated. And beyond that, we can't consider any more remedial classes towards the enrollment for financial aid. So anybody who has taken a number of remedial classes, you may want to check with us before you sign up for your class, just to make sure you're not exceeding that limit, because we would have to prorate your award if you have exceeded it. Another requirement is repeat classwork. In some cases, financial aid will not pay for repeated classwork. So if you ever have taken a class, you're having to retake it again for whatever reason, maybe you just want to take it to improve a grade, be sure to check with us to make sure financial aid will cover that. 12 full-time semester, here again, the lifetime eligibility limit, that limits your eligibility as well. So keep these components in mind. Now, some tips as you apply for financial aid. Read the instructions carefully. Never lie on your application, and never assume. If you have questions, call the financial aid office. We'll be glad to help you. And keep copies of your required documents, such as your tax returns, and be sure to provide the correct documentation as requested by the financial aid office. And follow up once you've completed your FAFSA. If you haven't heard anything within a couple of weeks, be sure to call us and check the status of your application. And be sure to apply by the deadline. You can contact the financial aid office if you're not sure what the deadline is for any particular grant or assistance. Veterans Affairs. If you would like to apply for veteran benefits, please contact me, Lisa Sharon, in the financial aid office. There are outside agencies also that may assist you as you go back to school. One such agency is the OIC office, the WIA program. Another program is the workforce development. There's a variety of sources listed here, and none of these come through the financial aid office, but they are types of programs that students utilize to help offset the cost of education. Here are some important websites that you might want to check out. North Carolina College Foundation is one website that houses a lot of information about financial aid and scholarships. The next website can give you some resources about planning for college. And the Federal Student Aid is another source that you can look into scholarships and grants. And if you're trying to help somebody go back to college, the next website gives you the steps to go to college. College Board is a very helpful website about standardized tests, and the next website is Exploring Career Options. And if you need a tax return, the IRS website may be useful. And the next website is our VA website. If you have VA issues or you would like to apply for assistance, that application is posted on that website. And of course, our website, thewilsoncc.edu, houses loan information, scholarship information, and grant information. And last but not least, if you have questions, please contact the Financial Aid Officer. I'm Lisa Sharon. I'm the Director of Financial Aid. I'm also the VA Certifying Official for the college. Candace Brewer is our Assistant Director of Financial Aid and the Loan Officer. Shannon Wiseman is our Financial Aid Specialist, and Lee Rhodes is the Financial Aid Assistant, Work Study, and Child Care Coordinator. Please feel free to call any one of us or email us if you have questions. Last but not least is our SAP test. Let's take a look at this, because SAP is one of the things that students run into the most as far as hindering eligibility. So let's take a look at an example. Thelma enrolls at Wilson CC, and she's in a program called Cartoon Design, which requires 60 hours. The first term, she registers for 10 credits and passes 7 of those credits. She obtains a 2.0 cumulative GPA, and she did not take any remedial classes. Does Thelma pass all 3 SAP components? Well, let's take a look at 67%. Her cumulative attempted hours are 10. Now 67% of 10 is going to be 6.7 hours. So if she passes 7 credits, she meets the minimum, and therefore she meets that requirement. GPA. The requirement is a 2.0, which includes remedial hours, but she didn't take any remedial hours, and she has the 2.0, so yes, she does meet the 2.0 requirement. And last but not least is 150%. The Cartoon Design requires 60 hours, and 150% of 60 hours is 90. Now she hasn't attempted 90 hours, she's only attempted 10, so she's well within the limit. So as we evaluate Thelma's SAP results, she has passed all 3 components. Therefore, pressing forward, she will continue to be eligible for financial aid, unless she goes in default or an overpayment or exceeds her lifetime eligibility used. So now we'll take a break, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.